Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. On April 12th at the Bloomington City Council meeting, Mayor John Hamilton shared information on the cost of annexation litigation.
First, on annexation cost, total direct cost to date and overall in the annexation process is $1.33 million. $1.33 million. We estimate that may rise to over $1.5 million with litigation expected. It's really important to note that about half of that total of 1.5, if that's where we end up, results directly from the Indiana General Assembly illegally stopping annexation in 2017 and 2019 actions. In other words, half of that cost has been caused directly by the General Assembly's unlawful actions. Most of the annexation costs reflect an extremely detailed fiscal plans that are done and renewed by experts for the public review, far beyond legal requirements, but done with a parcel-by-parcel fiscal impact and very detailed plans that let the administration, city council, and the public thoroughly vet the proposed annexation. And last point on cost, I just want to note that any halting and restarting or resetting of the current annexation process will not save money, it will cost money. Any renewal or restarting or resetting will require new or updated fiscal plans, which are the largest expense of annexation, substantially adding to any cost of future annexation. Again, we'll share the details of that with your council tomorrow morning. Just very briefly, also discussions of the size of annexation. You know much of this, but the proposed annexation is sized because nearly 20 years have now passed since there's been any annexation in the city, 20 years. So our boundaries no longer correspond to the extent of our community.
Councilmember Steve Volin asked Hamilton if city staff can put together a report on the tax increment financing that the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission uses to invest in projects like Switchyard Park and the Mill. Hamilton responded.
In the course of trying to establish, whether or not the TIF would be a better source of revenue for that, I found that it was very difficult to find anywhere on the city site how much money was in the TIF, but more specifically, what it was spent on. And so one thing that I'd like to know is, can you and your staff prepare? The TIF has been a big deal with a lot of money going through it for a lot of years. And it's hard to say, well, what have we really spent it on? How can we break it down? What big because mostly it's large dollars and few disbursements to big projects.
Right. So
can you talk about those projects at all? And if not, can we have that be a regular part of the budget from now on? Because the RDC is not exactly a body that regularly reports to us, and it's responsible for a lot of money.
Yeah, I think those are really well taken. Of course, the RDC does produce an annual report that gives its balances at the end of the year. It's coming out shortly for 2022, which will show about $26 million. As I think I mentioned, the 2021 report shows about $22 million in balance. But as you indicate, and of course, every project the RDC does, every investment they make is itemized in a meeting and it's in the minutes, but as you indicate, it is difficult if one were to say, what has the RDC invested in over the last 10 years, or 5 or 15, that's not a list that we have.
Hamilton said it would take a few weeks for the staff to compile a list of the city's investments. Next, Innovation Director Devta Kidd gave a report on the Sidewalk Innovation Project.
Residents said that sidewalks are important to them, and through our many strategic plans, we've told them that it's a priority for us. The innovation method that we used is called human-centered design, and as the name suggests, it centers the people who would be impacted by a change and involves them in the solution making for the process. We used an innovation method because the solution to the problem was not known. Had we known the solution, it would have been a project management exercise. So not every problem is suited to an innovation framework, but this one was. The starting point was to define the problem, to solve, and then deeply understand the context. To understand the context, we conducted 14 resident interviews and observed 10 residents, not in a creepy way, on their journey by sidewalk. We reviewed all of the city's strategic planning and meeting documents that pertain to sidewalks, and we analyzed the data from 6 years of our U reports. The research pointed to a number of different directions deserving of focus, but ultimately, the voice of the residents was clear. They just want to be able to get where they're going by sidewalk without having to step into traffic. So what's getting in the way? Sidewalks in poor condition, most of which use historic pavers. Additionally, residents interviewed were unclear about who's responsible for maintaining the pavement surface. Encroachment by trees, hedges, low-hanging branches. Here again, some residents weren't clear that even trimming hedges or clearing away the branches was their responsibility. The city maintains some of these things for pathways and multi-use trails, which look like sidewalks to residents. So there's some confusion there. Rough transitions between sidewalks and driveways and alley entrances, and different things blocking the sidewalk like trash and recycling bins and scooters. And finally, we heard of gaps in the sidewalk network, such as sidewalks ending abruptly without signage to motorists that pedestrians are getting ready to enter the roadway.
KID also shared that they're going to keep researching alternatives to historical sidewalks, including the use of alternative materials like recycled plastic instead of cement to build new sidewalks.
Some recent research revealed a few companies that are trialing alternative materials like recycled hard plastics and recycled rubber that perform as good or better than concrete in climates like ours for a lower cost over the lifetime of the material. I'm excited to announce that we'll begin the process of exploring the possibility of using alternative materials starting next month. In May, an Indiana-based vendor will meet with representatives from multiple departments to answer their questions about the material and determine if our terrain is suitable to their product. If so, we'll identify a pilot area. An interesting aspect of this particular vendor's product is that it's made from recycled plastics that could be sourced from our own community. So we could be providing the source material for our own sidewalks. We also continue to look for other materials. There's a lot of buzz in the innovation world about cementless concrete that could aid in carbon capture, as one example.
Councilmember Dave Rollo asked KID about the sample size used to determine the support of these ideas. KID said that the sample size was 20. Rollo suggested that a larger survey be taken to get more representative data on the public's perspective. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
Do you know that thousands of children go without school supplies every day? Teachers Warehouse is a 100% volunteer-powered organization. We service the educational and creative needs of students in Monroe, Brown, Greene, Lawrence, and Owen counties by distributing school supplies free to the teachers. Teachers Warehouse is composed of 7 rooms filled with books, pencils, paper, and even tools to motivate students. If it's in a classroom, we'll supply it. To donate new or gently used school supplies or volunteer, give us a call at 812-929-7522 or email us at contact@teacherswarehouse.net.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on April 12th, Director of Emergency Management, Jamie Niebel, gave an update on the work they have been doing to provide support after the tornado.
Good morning. I just wanted to provide a quick update for the storm efforts near Steinsville, the tornado storm efforts. So far, we've accomplished placing 15 roll-offs along Wolf Mountain and Texas Ridge Road. We've also placed a small one at the former Steinsville Elementary School to help support the resource center that is still going with the help of the American Red Cross. Several loads have already been hauled away courtesy of K&S roll-off, and much progress has been seen over the last 4 days as far as debris cleanup. Tree debris will take the most time, but most residents already have that in progress, or at least a plan for removing that. Monday was spent doing outreach with a mental health counselor specializing in trauma, and further requests for counseling are being coordinated through myself and through the Red Cross. There is a fund for monetary donations established through the United Way, and physical items that are still needed for supporting those residents are totes with lids, the plastic totes with lids, and those can be dropped off at the Steinsville Elementary School. I would like to give a special thanks to the Steinsville Town Council for letting us use the old elementary school. That has been a tremendous help. And I think that there is a little more coordination between them and the American Red Cross for future use, similar future uses. So that has been great. The Bean Blossom Township Steinsville Volunteer Fire Department, that's a long one. They've been a big help also with kind of shuttling us and Homeland Security and FEMA around for the multiple damage assessments throughout the last 2 weeks, and allowing us to set up a makeshift EOC in their radio room. The Monroe County Sheriff's Department for allowing us the use of their drone and for providing multiple patrols throughout the damaged areas. Very much appreciated by everyone, including the affected residents as well. The Monroe County community organizations active in disaster, they provided some support to the resource center. Very much appreciated. American Red Cross, of course, the Highway Department, South Central REMC has had quite a daunting job ahead of them trying to restore power to the area and make it safe. So hats off to our linemen. Their efforts are always appreciated. And of course, the commissioners as well. From an EMA standpoint, the support of you guys has been tremendously appreciated. It's not always expected, but always appreciated. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Penny Giffens reminded residents that they can sign up for the Community Alert System to be informed of weather-related events in the future. Giffens said that residents can sign up on the county website under the Emergency Management's page. During public comment, Monroe County resident David Rubel praised Sheriff Ruben Marte and said he appreciated that the Sheriff's Department added mattresses to sleep on in the drunk tank.
The new sheriff, I've never met him. I love him already. You know why? He's righted a wrong that was done in this town for a long time. The jail, whenever you'd go in there, be arrested, they would take you to the drunk tank and make you sleep on a concrete floor. Now you're given a mattress. The question too is, why was that allowed to go on so long? We're Americans. You get arrested, you're innocent until proven guilty, but yet when you're took to the drunk tank, you're made to sleep on a concrete floor, really? But I'm glad that got righted finally. I think you ought to get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing that. You know, my wife got arrested 10 years ago for, rest in peace, Loretta, about 10 years ago for DUI. You know, I went and got her the next day. She was crying her eyes out. They made me sleep on a concrete floor. You know, that's wrong. And I'm glad that got righted. But I'd like to know why that happened so long. Did you guys not know that people were being made to sleep on a concrete floor with no mattress, no pillow? You know, I heard it was because the people that work at the jail didn't like it when drunk people come in there and would get sick on the mattresses. They'd have to clean those, so they took them away. That's what I heard. You know, and also, another thing too, at the jail, they need to rotate the jailers because, they get hardened when they go in there every day and they meet people. It's the same old story. They start getting aggravated with the inmates. They need to be rotated somehow to where you don't have the same people working in that jail every year. I mean, I know it's their job, but some kind of rotation needs to happen because, they get jaded, inmates asking them for the same thing every day. And it probably makes them a little bit mean. They need to be rotated.
Also during public comment, Chamber of Commerce President Eric Spoonmore urged the commissioners to create a capital improvements board to manage the incoming food and beverage tax dollars. His suggestion comes in light of the legislation proposed at the state level to change the way the food and beverage tax can be used.
I just wanted to thank Commissioner Githens for being up in Indianapolis yesterday to testify on the House Bill 1499, which kind of came as a surprise to me. I got word of it at about 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday as I was reading through some of the provisions. It was concerning, I think, as I would imagine some of you probably are, that it takes away some of those guardrails and safeguards for county government with the expansion process and with the food and beverage tax. So again, sounds like Senator Yoder's working on trying to get another fix for us. I don't know how much longer we can count on her to get these things done for us here in Monroe County, but certainly appreciate all of her efforts up there in Indianapolis as well too. I know the CIB ordinance that you all had kind of drafted expired. That was contingent on the city's participation in that process. We had, of the 4 entities involved, we had 3 who were ready to participate. Unfortunately, we had 1 who did not. But I think, just to reassure you all, I think the community, particularly the business community, to us, it's a foregone conclusion. I don't think we're ever going to be able to get all 4 entities on board with this, but I hope that won't let us stop a capital improvement board going forward, and I hope we can get that created as soon as possible, because it is important to note that of the 20 elected officials that were involved in this process, 18 of them wanted to move forward with the capital improvement board. And so would just encourage you, we haven't heard a lot about it recently, so I know these topics came up in Indianapolis yesterday. They move really quickly up there. It's incredible how quick they can move in Indianapolis versus how quick we can move here at the local level, but would just encourage you all to get that capital improvement board put in place, make appointments to it, and then again to note that at the Chamber's most recent mayoral forum, we heard no objections from any of the 3 candidates that are running for mayor to a capital improvement board. In fact, they all said they want this project to move forward as well too. So I think you'll have a willing partner, and would just encourage you again to establish this as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
The Monroe County Council met on April 11th. During public comment, Tobacco-Free Coalition member Kristen Terry spoke to the council about the coalition's efforts to address vaping addiction in Monroe County.
So currently we are seeing a vaping epidemic among our youth. Between 2016 and 2018, current use of e-cigarettes have nearly doubled among Hoosier youth. Since 2012, e-cigarette use among middle school and high school students has increased nearly 5-fold. E-cigarettes remain the most used tobacco product among Indiana middle school and high school students in 2018, with those percents being 5.5% and 18.5% respectively. We do not have accurate data from 2020 due to COVID, and we are waiting on our data from 2022 that we just did this past fall. In Monroe County, we have gotten reports from school staff from both Richland, Bean Blossom, and Monroe County Community School Corporation that vaping is a major issue within the schools. And it's not just our older kids. We have reports of elementary kids as young as 3rd graders who are vaping. While the data is still limited, there is more research emerging that proves that vaping is harmful for the user and for bystanders. There are studies that show that the amount of nicotine in e-cigarettes has increased over the last 10 years. We know that from these studies that 1 pod used in an e-cigarette has the same amount of nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. We know that nicotine is harmful to a developing brain. It is a stimulant, and it affects the brain the same way as if someone were to use methamphetamine. While nicotine is what is most commonly in vapes, we are also beginning to see cannabis in them as well, in the vapes in the schools for those that do confiscate and drug test. Currently, the Tobacco Free Coalition is partnering with the Monroe County Health Department to work towards adding e-cigarettes to the county ordinance. It is already a part of the city ordinance, but it is not on the county. As community members, we must continue to be informed about the problems within our community to protect our youth. After all, they are the future of our community. Thank you.
Next, the council heard from County Auditor Catherine Smith that the Platt Book Fund has been depleted due to a geographical information system project to ensure that all of the plat lines in the county are accurate.
So I used the money, I went to you guys and I asked you guys, can I use the money that's in this account to fix our parcel layers, to make them correct, because we have a lot of problems. We need to start to do this twofold ways. Twofold in that. The first one is we need a GIS parcel person, not a person to run the GIS, but a GIS parcel person, so that when we do plats and subdivisions and combinations, they are correct once we get it correct, once we get the GIS correct. Second, the GIS is incorrect substantially, and we really need to create a parcel fabric layer for our geographical information system, our GIS system for the county, and start fresh with a layer that actually is correct based on our plats and what we've done in the past. So in order to do that, we sent out bids and said, well, won the bid, and it was covered by this fund that operates under me. And so I have some bad news for you in that the fund is negative $453. But I have some good news for you. As of today, Monroe County, and I mean as of actually this afternoon, Monroe County has a parcel fabric layer on its GIS. So bad news happened on the same day that kind of good news happened. So I'm happy to tell you about that. The parcel fabric currently reflects the data we have submitted to Sidwell on 11/10/22, so November 10th. As any new subdivisions or parcel changes since then has not been updated, we've been holding them while they get this uploaded, while this gets put in at the right datum points and on the Cartesian plane exactly perpendicular and and on all the coordinates.
The council will hear a formal request to reallocate payroll funds for plat personnel at their next meeting on May 9th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Ellettsville Town Council meeting on April 10th, Clerk Treasurer Sandra Hash discussed a recommendation from the State Board of Accounts that the appointment of William Ellis as president of the council be adjusted to reflect a regular 12-month term.
Well, at the exit conference, it was just William and I that attended, and they had reviewed our minutes and knew that you had made a motion to just fill a partial year. And they said customarily, you appoint your officers at the beginning of the year for 12 months. And then I also, when I submit my annual report, I put that in the gateway, and that lists the existing officers at that time. And so then that's the record for DLGF and State Board of Accounts. So they requested, State Board of Accounts at the exit conference, that we elect our officers in January for 12-month terms.
Councilmember Pamela Samples asked why the clarification needed to be made. Town Attorney Darla Brown explained the reasoning behind it.
There was a discussion at the time about how to handle this, and I think the decision on the part of the council was to go ahead and elect William as president and Trevor as vice president, and then William made the comment, or Scott made the comment after William offered that William would resign in April. And so I thought that was okay given the statute, and like Sandy said, since then the State Board of Accounts has told us that's probably not the best way to do things. So I would just suggest that William stay in until January, and then council can do what it does every year and pick people for a one-year rotation for president and vice president.
Councilmember Dan Swafford asked if it was necessary to change their appointment or if it was just a recommendation. Brown responded.
Well, I don't know that anybody's going to get in trouble, but I don't know that you want to get crosswise with the State Board of Accounts, particularly over something that is easily fixable, I guess. The state code says that the legislative body shall select one of its members to be its president for a definite term, which may not exceed the member's term of office as a member of the legislative body. And so this council has customarily, in January of every year, elected a president and a vice president for a year. So I don't think the State Board of Accounts thought that anybody was acting in bad faith.
Hash clarified that it was not written in the audit, but it was a verbal recommendation. Councilmember Scott Oldham moved that Ellis's term end at the end of the year to comply with the State Board of Accounts suggestion. Swafford and Samples voted no, Oldham and Trevor Sager voted yes, Ellis abstained. Hash was then called upon to be the tie-breaking vote. She voted yes to follow the recommendation of the State Board of Accounts. The motion passed, meaning Ellis's position will end in January. Ellis then addressed the council.
I don't want us to get crosswise with the State Board of Accounts over something technical, but I don't want other council members to think that any of us knew about this until the State Board of Accounts audit. And in the rotation next time, since I've had this, skip me. So hopefully I can make it up in credibility then to people.
The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be held on April 24th. At the Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on April 10th, Capital Projects Manager Dan Hudson presented the bid opening for the Dillman Road Wastewater Treatment Plant for bar screen and electrical feeder improvements.
This project is for the Dillman Wastewater Treatment Plant, replacement of the 2 bar screens at the headworks, and also replacement of the electrical feeder lines. It's a big job, and we have 2 bidders. We'll open the first one, which is Graves Construction. The bids, there should be a base bid and an alternate bid, mandatory alternate bid. The mandatory alternate bid is for the replacement of an electrical conduit, maybe, if we need it.
Hudson and staff will look at the bids and recommend one for approval at their next meeting. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.